Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Startup Jungle. I'm your host, Los Silva, and today with me I have Matteo Cassese. At Matteo C is his Twitter handle. We will have all that on the show notes later on. But Matteo, how are you, man?
I am great. Thanks a lot for having me on the podcast.
Thanks so much for being on. So Matteo, you are a consultant, entrepreneur, consultant to startups and companies, innovator. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about exactly what you do right now and what you're focusing on?
So what I focus on is basically two things, and when I'm lucky, they come together, and the two things are ideas and people. I fortunately encounter some extraordinary people in my current um, base town, that is Berlin. And sometimes these people bring some ideas, sometimes I'm the one bringing the ideas, and when the two things start to work together, then a few things start to happen. And I bring this approach when I encounter just individuals, and the outcome can be just to consult them or to build a startup together. And I try to use exactly the same approach when I'm talking to bigger companies, because I think that also bigger companies just need a fresh approach to ideas. Then, ideas alone have a hard time. I like to use all the most current tools and frameworks that I can find in order to organize these ideas and transform them in opportunities and transform them in sometimes small businesses. So businesses that have no fear of being small and maybe remaining small or having a scale that is not the scale of the unicorns. It's the scale of sustainability and it's the scale of managing your own life, your private life, and your work life.
Yeah, there's a lot of, hype and talk in online in general on just scale and growth and massiveness, but 90% of the world just wants to do a little bit better. You know what I mean? Not everyone's looking to get acquired by IBM and do all these massive acquisition type things. They just want to kind of build a company that's sustainable, that scales at their own pace, and that can deliver them a great lifestyle.
Yes, this is absolutely true, and also not maybe sometimes you have a year or 2 years in your life where you wish to have that kind of speed and that kind of scale, and then you also want something that you can slow down.
Yeah.
And it can happen that you are losing some opportunities when you are not available to this huge possibility of growth. But at the same time, if you can maintain control of what you are doing, especially in some areas, it's also important to maintain the financial control of what you're doing. Then you can say, this year my projects is like one of my co-founders. He's building a house this year.
Hmm.
So that's basically half of what the company has to do is being involved in building the house, and this is totally fine.
So
This
the
is
company is building the house, or he is building his own house, and the company's kind of involved in it just because it kind of flows that way.
the company is involved because he's the mind of the company. So if his mind is set on having a super eco-friendly, efficient, passive house, then maybe some projects won't get done a lot during this year, and it's totally fine.
Yeah, yeah. So I was looking through your website, and I found that you're doing a lot of workshops, and you're kind of getting into doing a lot of digital marketing courses and stuff as well. And one of them I kind of wanted to talk about was Presentation Hero. Can you talk a little bit about the essence of Presentation Hero and kind of like the 10 steps that you mentioned in that presentation?
Right. So Presentation Hero is my try to add a little bit of value in the area of presentation skills and presentation training and all the valuable work that has been done by some great professionals like Nancy Duarte at Duarte or Gar Reynolds at Presentation Zen. And I started, like most of the other people in this space, by going back to the essence of story and how we relate to content, and we relate to content through narrative, and try to digest this big concept, because if you enter a boardroom and you start talking about story, you don't always get the best response. And so I'm trying to distill from the great principles of story, which are very complex, and you can use a myth, you can use movies to get some examples of those, but to distill them in actionable, simple tips, sometimes just simple tips, sometimes also bigger principles, but that also can be applied in a very simple manner. And I'm really in the process of debuting this new methodology to the internet, and I've had a great experience by sharing the first 10 tips that are all about structuring a presentation, so structuring your thought and structuring the presentation. And I plan on going on to deliver some more tips in the area of designing the presentation, so when you have to deal also with the presentation software, and how to approach that, and when to start opening your PowerPoint or your Keynote. And a third and really important part is presentation delivery. So what do you do when you are actually in the room? What are the do's and a lot of the don'ts, really? That maybe that's even the most important part. And what's different about Presentation Hero is that it's really not geared towards anyone in particular, and it doesn't want to change the style of anyone. I'm a great lover of bad presentations. I'm a huge lover of great presentations as well, but I like how bad presentation can be personal, and I've seen a lot of presentation training that goes in the direction of making everyone super confident, everyone applying some body tricks, some posture, some kind of voice delivery that is effective, drives successful presentations. And it's not only that; that is not for everyone. And I think that presentation training is something that needs to be done from the mailroom up to the CEO, and it's not just for the sales department. I'm trying to make it something that can be relatable for really for everyone.
Yeah, it was really great, and I noticed actually in the presentation about presentations that you did, and we'll link up to that because it's available on your website and on YouTube as well. But I noticed that your tone was different. It was slowed down. It was very specific. I noticed just the way you were switching over to slides and things like that, and it kept me. I didn't even realize it, but it kept me involved. I actually watched it like 2-3 times, and it's only 9 minutes long, but it kept me intrigued to like stay inside of the presentation that you were giving. We deal with a lot of people who are freelancers, and they do e-commerce all the way to software as a service companies, and a lot of things that they go out and do is they sell through webinars, which is essentially, you know, online live presentations. What are some actionable tips and strategies that you could give our group to kind of create better presentations, and kind of, I would say, because I saw in your presentation that you're also a big fan of this, blend in story, own personal and business story inside of the presentation to create something that keeps you engaged and at the same time essentially sells you something.
Right. The first thing that it's really important when you're doing something online, also if you're doing something in a physical space, but online it's really, really important, is to give your audience a sense of control. Mm-hmm. So you are clearly controlling the space, you're controlling the stage, you're controlling the visuals, you're controlling the audio. But if you give your audience just the basic information at the beginning, you know, this webinar will last 35 minutes. During this webinar, we'll cover this and this and this. And this is already something that puts your audience at ease, and they can mentally relax, and they say, okay, I have this 35 minutes, I'm going to devote it to this. The other thing that you really need to do at the beginning is to establish yourself as a human being. And if you do that, you get a huge advantage, because you are, from that point, you are a relatable person, and you are not just the voice from a technological artifact, and you're not just the voice behind some slides that appear from a screen sharing software. And you can, when you introduce yourself, you can also explain why you're doing it. You know, why are you passionate about the topic? Why is it's so important for you to do a webinar in that moment of time? What has happened in your life recently that reinforces some of the messages that you're gonna deliver? If you do that, you can kind of get the attention of your audience from the first bit, and you can, at that point, you have to start delivering something. So what you deliver should be in the form of a story, as you said. And how do you structure a story? So it's not about some funny anecdotes or being witty or having a story about your childhood. It's about establishing where you're going to bring your audience to. So establish a starting point, like we don't know nothing about topic X, or we are just at this level, and an ending point that it should be a dramatical change from the beginning. Either in perspective, in amount of knowledge, in emotion. It can be any type of change. It doesn't need to be just content. Just, you know, you're not trying to push Wikipedia to your audience. Once you establish that, you have to construct the way that you're going to bring your audience from the starting point to the ending point, and you do that through showing what is going to be what's going to happen at the end, and then going back to what is happening in the moment, and going back and forth from these two states. And what you can do towards the end, and it's really important, is that the story needs to have a peak, a high point,
an aha moment.
Yeah, and this is not a trick. You know, it's not just that it's better if you have a high point, and but it's okay if you don't, because it really is something that connects the dots for your audience. And since your high point it's towards the end of your presentation, it also eases your audience into understanding that that is the most important bit of information, and then from that moment they can start to relax and ease back to their life, and your presentation is about to end. So this really summarizes the approach, and there are so many layers, and you can go inside each of these elements and each of these items with a lot more depth.
Yeah. What about? I really agree with you on the aha moment. I think a lot of people just run through a presentation, especially more on the corporate and side of things. They just kind of go through, these are things you need to learn, very robotic, and there's no connection between people. There's no story that can kind of put something in my head saying, oh, I can relate to this, or I can kind of see how this helps me in my business or in my life, and then it just keeps going with content, and then it ends. There's no real climax, there's no real story, there's no real connection. And I think when you're doing a presentation online or offline, the immediate point that you need to focus on is, how can I, whatever I'm selling, whatever I'm presenting on, how can I make that connect to you? How can I make that important inside of your circle and of your life and your situation, right? Because that's how you reach the aha moment. That's how you reach when you're leaving, someone wanting to say, well, what else is there? How can I learn more? What's the next step, right?
Absolutely. And you cannot do that if you stay inside your space and if you stay inside your mind. The solution to relating to your audience is actually to do a kind of Jedi trick to transfer your consciousness to the consciousness of your audience and try to understand how they feel. Like, for instance, you may go on through your presentation using your own lingo and using your three-letter acronyms from your maybe from your marketing or from your specific industry, and nobody understands those. So, and what happens when you don't understand? As an audience member, you disconnect. You go back to your thoughts. You go back to your own mind. So if you are able to do this exercise, let's say that you have terrible slides, you don't, you haven't thought about the structure of your presentation, you haven't done, you know, any polish, you don't have good visuals, etc. But if you're able just to focus on your audience, you already are halfway to giving a great presentation, because you will know where to spend more time, where to spend less time, and as you said, to focus on what you can give, and to focus on what is needed by your audience, and to focus on what you can show them. Obviously, you're not going to give your audience all of the benefits you can provide. Maybe you want to sell some of those benefits. Maybe those benefits can come only through time. But if you show them at least one, you will leave them wanting more.
So I wanted to ask you this. I see a lot of people that have problems and trouble, and I think it's the most overwhelming part of creating presentations, and that is the slide structuring. I know that even I have a hard time wanting to create a presentation. Then you get into slides and you get into all that. It can get a little overwhelming. So do you have any tips or tricks on how many slides, or how do you go about it? I noticed that you only had a few slides on your presentation, and they were still very impactful. I think a lot of people go through the mistake of creating a 300 slide deck for a 20-minute, 30-minute, thing, and they just slide through it. And personally, I think that takes away from the engagement and the conversation that you're having with people. So I kind of tend to go a little bit slower and lower on the slides and more conversational. But not sure which one is right or wrong.
Well, the conversational approach, for sure, since it involves directly your audience, is the right one to capture them. Then, obviously, the conversation eats away from the structure, because sometimes you want to go in one direction and your audience drives you to another one. But if your audience is driving, that's great, because you actually engage them. So your problem in a way is solved. When you find yourself in a more formal kind of setting where you cannot start this kind of conversation, it's really important that first of all, that your deck has the right structure. So you have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And this is crucial. So towards the end, you have to have a high point. At the beginning, you have to have at least an amount of introduction that gives your audience an idea of why you're talking. If they don't know why you're talking, it's a tragedy, because maybe some of them know about you, and maybe some of them, by the end of your presentation, they will understand that you are the major expert on that topic. But if you don't tell beforehand, hey, I'm the one that you have to listen to when it comes to this topic, you're just losing an opportunity. And in terms of how to go by with the number of slides and what slides have to go where, you have to rehearse a lot so that you know how your timing is working. And the trick that I use is actually that I arrive at opening my presentation software only when I have the exact number of slides that I want to do. I open it only when I have the text that goes into the slides done in a text editor. So I don't do slides at the beginning. If I have some text that I want on the slides, I put it on a text editor as it is. And after you've sketched the slides, and I do sketch the slides on my iPad with sketching software, so with a little pen, or just on A4 paper, which is fantastic. And when you have pieces of paper, it's really easy to look at a piece of paper and say, oh, useless, and then you crumple it and you throw it away. If you spend half an hour on a slide, and it looks great. It has that diagram where you connected all the dots, etc. It's much harder to get rid of it. But the creative process is getting rid of stuff. It's not really a lot only about creating stuff. It's also about cleaning and getting to the essence. And another thing is even to try to rewrite. So even the presentation text, treat it like it's copy, and treat it like it's copy that is not going on your website. It's going on print, and it's not even going on print on a daily newspaper. It's going on a monthly. So treat it like something that you want to be as round and as polished as possible. And all those tricks can lead you to having a better structure, and if you're able to cut a lot, then also you can achieve this kind of clarity and of synthesis that's great in the greatest presentation. You can notice that there's nothing more than is needed. There's nothing missing, but there's nothing that is too much.
Yeah, I think creating too much just adds a sense of overwhelm to the people listening, and it just takes away. And so creating something that's simple, and I really like the extra topic that you mentioned, where think about it as like you're writing copy. I feel like too many people try to create presentations that are just very quick and just written off. If you kind of test mentally and kind of even test within before you even have the presentation, test headlines and test kind of how you're going to create the headline, maybe as a slide and different things like that. It'll add a lot of little details like that, add a significant amount of impact into people's presentations.
Yeah, and one thing is that what I always think about doing a presentation is I think about doing the second, the third, the fourth, or the 100th time. So I think of the process of refining it, and I think that the first time I'm going to give it, it's not going to be perfect, etc. But I start thinking about a project that may potentially follow me for many months to come. So it's not something that I would ever do the night before and just with very little time. I always devote the right amount of time to it to make sure that I start building something, even though maybe that presentation will be held, just one time. It's just for one client, and it's a one-off.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Giving something like that time is extremely important. Not just going by quickly with it, because a lot of them can be one-offs. But for marketers and for people selling things online, you can just keep tweaking that presentation. For example, if you're selling anything on e-commerce and anything SaaS related, just really tweaking and honing in that presentation. The more presentations you do, the more you can kind of start to understand your buyer's persona, and exactly what they want delivered to them.
Absolutely.
Great, Matteo. This has been really good. This has actually been great. I want to make sure that everybody who wants to reach out to you can do so not only through Twitter, which is at Matteo C, but what is your website, and where's the best place that people can reach out to you?
So my website has also a complicated name, because it's called La Fabbrica della Realtà, which means the factory of reality, and that's where you find all my projects, and you can find there also Presentation Hero. And I guess the best way to reach out to me is Twitter for interaction purposes. And if you just Google my name, Matteo Cassese, you can find my blog, and I blog about too many topics at the moment, and I'm focusing on so many different projects that I think you can easily get a little bit lost on my blog. But it's not about that's my free space of just thought. So there I'm playing with concepts of identity, with video, with applying education to corporations and corporate culture and all the like. And I think that is the best way to get to know me, to get to understand a little bit more of my approach, and then there is always the possibility to jump in and get in contact with me at any point.
Well, thank you. This has been great. And guys, once again, at Matteo C for Twitter. I will have everything else on the show notes. If you guys want to reach us, as always, it is at Startup Jungle on Twitter. Please make sure that you subscribe to our growth hacking strategies, and make sure you are on our email list over here to the right, which will have all the growth hacking strategies and details on our upcoming blogs. And if you are listening on iTunes, please leave us a review. We appreciate it very much, and we will have more episodes like this coming up shortly. That's it for us, guys. Thank you very much. We'll talk to you soon.